Mutant Deviations, Wormo, complete. By Slider214. Author note, thanks again to my beta Grey Raven 09 for his assistance and quick turnaround on this chapter. Split 02. Welcome to the Para-Humans online message boards. You are currently logged in, Watchbug. You are viewing threads you have replied to, and threads that have new replies, or private message conversations with new replies. Thread OP is displayed. 10 posts per page. Last 10 messages in private message history. Threads and private messages are ordered chronologically. Topic: A new thread. In Board's new cape in the bay. Bagrat, original poster, veteran member, the guy in the know. Posted on April 15, 2011. Okay, so I'm guessing that everyone has seen the reports by now, but in case you haven't, here are the links to what we know for sure about the new cape on the scene of the latest action in Brockton Bay. Video of the cape talking with Panacea, link. Video of a swarm of bugs vaguely person-shaped leaving the bank and immediately vanishing into thin air, link. Blurry photos of the Undersiders all on a single monster thing leaving the scene, link. Just a quick recap as well for those new to this situation. The cape was either present, triggered, or came to the scene of a robbery almost immediately following the Undersiders arriving on site. They and Panacea together managed to chase off the team of villains. The cape's name is currently unknown and she didn't stay to speak with the wards that had arrived either. It's unknown if she's a hero or a villain or even an independent. Showing page 1 of 12. Specific protagonist. Replied on April 15, 2011. How certain are we that this new cape is a girl? Reeve, verified PRT agent. Replied on April 15, 2011. She's a girl. Some of the boys spoke with several of the bank customers and they all confirmed that the cape sounded female and that both Glory Girl and Panacea were referring to her as female. Char. Replied on April 15, 2011. Good. We need more female heroes in the Bay. Or more heroes in general. I wish we knew her name. Does anyone know her name? Specific protagonist. Replied on April 15, 2011. None of the threads have her name yet and GG was apparently fishing for it too. I'm betting she triggered in the bank. Everyone knows that Panacea isn't a fighter. This girl must have stepped up to try to do something, things went bad and she triggered and managed to fight back. Damn, I know there are worse ways to trigger, but to become a swarm of bugs? We can't even send her a hug. White collar, cape wife. Replied on April 15, 2011. Become the swarm? Panacea's power works via touch. The new cape would have to have some physical body in order for Panacea to touch her after the attack. Also, what was with the Undersiders pulling this job to begin with? They've never done anything in broad daylight before and never this high profile. Tin_mother, moderator. Replied on April 15, 2011. Please let's stay on topic. Don't speculate on the Undersiders in this thread, there's a thread here already for that discussion. As to the topic, I would agree that while Panacea's power does require touch to function, it's possible the new cape doesn't have a physical body anymore and the two were just in close proximity. None of the videos are high enough quality to tell for sure either way. TemporalKnight 03, veteran member. Replied on April 15, 2011. Man, let's hope she has a body. That would be a horrible power set. Bugs alone is bad enough. Being bugs? Sucks to be her. Specific protagonist. Replied on April 15, 2011. Even if she is just bugs, she's awesome. The Undersiders managed to shake off Lung the other week after robbing his casino. She scared them off in less than 5 minutes. I need to meet her and shake her. Beatles. Vista, verified cape, wards ENE. Replied on April 15, 2011. While I understand the urge to flock to a new cape, I admit I'd love to meet her myself and try to recruit her. We need more girls in the wards. Everyone needs to remember that we know almost nothing about the girl yet. All we know for sure is that she foiled the robbery with Panacea's assistance and that she didn't want to wait around to speak with me or Clock Blocker. Not that I can blame her, of course. Right, Clock? End of page. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12. I rubbed at the bridge of my nose as I pulled back from the computer. So much for laying low. That plan was well and truly shot. I was getting a rather large chuckle at how everyone seemed to be convinced that I was just a swarm of bugs now, though. I could probably work with that too as long as I was careful. Only really Amy and Tattletale knew for sure that I was more than the bugs. Maybe the other 3 Undersiders too. They might hold a grudge, but they didn't seem the type. All of my research pointed to them as being fairly small time. They weren't the E88 or the ABB. They just robbed places. If I stayed away from them for a while, I doubted they'd out my secret. They probably wouldn't anyway, even if I pissed them off. It stepped too close to too many lines. The computer beeped as another message went off in the thread. I refocused and blushed as specific protagonist apparently started getting rather heated with Svoid_cowboys about what could and could not be done without a body and how much fun could be had with a lot of tiny legs. Hurriedly I shut that topic down and shunted some of my embarrassment into the swarm. People on Foe were insane. Once my face had returned to normal, I pulled out the note that Amy had given me and unfolded it. It was only 10 a.m. on a Friday. She'd probably be in class. I shouldn't do this now. I should have done this last night. Or never. Never was good. Never was awesome. Pushing more of my fear into the buzzing critters a few blocks down the road, I took a deep breath and flipped open my phone. My father didn't know I had it. I'd bought it with my own money and gotten one of those prepaid cards for it. Was it perfect? No, but I could text as much as I wanted and I could call the PRT in an emergency if I needed to. And if this turned out to be a bad idea, I could ditch the phone easier than I could ditch the laptop. That had been hard to get my hands on. At least leeching off the Wi-Fi next door was simple thanks to my swarm sense helping with the password. Hi, Amy. You said we should meet. Tell me when and where? Taylor. I nodded as the message sent. Short and to the point. Perfect. I was flipping the phone closed as it buzzed in my hand. Staring at the screen, I gaped for an instant before shaking my head and opening the new message. Boardwalk okay? Fugly Bob's? Say an hour? Actually no. Scratch that, not fugly. There's an ice cream shop 3 stores down. Don't remember the name. I snorted, one corner of my mouth quirking up as I rolled my eyes. I know it. I sent back. Shouldn't you be in school? Shouldn't you? She had me there. I don't go very often anymore. I'm technically studying for my GED. Technically. It's also not official. Can explain later maybe. Amy apparently didn't have much problems with my skipping class since she just sent me a shrugging emoji. I didn't even know how to get to that option on my phone. Did my phone even have that option? Whatever. Meet you at the ice cream place in an hour. Flipping the phone closed, for real this time, I took another breath and reclaimed everything I had sent to the swarm. I was going to have to practice my hold duration, but now was not the time for it. I apparently had to get ready to meet the most well-known healer on the East Coast. I was going to need to make sure I had as much shunting time saved up as possible. Something told me I was going to need it in an hour. I could have taken the bus considering I had to get all the way over to the boardwalk, but it was more productive to walk. I needed to build up the swarm and I couldn't really do that on the bus. My initial range was too small to grab enough of new critters like that. No, it was better to take a nice power walk and collect all of the spiders and flies and roaches that were hiding out in the homes and side streets along the way. Not that I could actually fully clean out the homes, but hey, people would appreciate it if their front rooms were cleared of bugs, right? I had most of my swarm making their way along behind me at whatever pace they could manage. None were clustered though, and it was easy enough to blend them in with the local critters while still moving with a purpose. I'd been expanding my numbers since January, but I still only had a few tens of thousands of individuals. Spread that out over 8 to 10 blocks and nobody should be the wiser even when I had my whole shooting gallery at my beck and call in a moment's notice. I made good time getting to the ice cream shop and managed to grab a rather rare prize of a hornet's nest along the way too, which was nice. I had so few of those in my swarm and more raw power was always a welcome addition. Hey, over here. I shook off my examination of the newly acquired subjects as Amy's voice cut through the small crowd in the store. Glancing over, I found she'd claimed a booth at the back of the shop. And apparently had 2 milkshakes in front of her. Swallowing my initial terror at that presumption, I forced a smile and walked over to sit across from her. Hi. Sorry, am I late? I walked, but I thought I was going to make it. As I settled into the booth, I brought some of the swarm into the store to keep tabs on everyone. Just because we were in an ice cream shop didn't mean that there couldn't be capes or normal people acting stupid here. Case in point, me. No, you're good. I just got here a little early. I kinda needed to get away. Slept at my aunt's last night and Crystal won't leave me alone asking for details, Amy murmured. I frowned at the way her hands were wrapped tightly enough around her glass to go white at the knuckles. Everything okay? Not really, but that's not your problem, Amy said. I tried to remember how things had been before Sophia Hess, before Mom died, back when I'd had friends and people to talk to. How did this script go again? Aren't we here to talk? You could tell me what's going on and I could, well, I probably can't help since I don't know you. But I could at least listen. That wasn't how things went. Damn it, had I really been a social pariah for long enough that I couldn't even pretend like I knew what I was doing? Amy gave me a small smile and pushed the second milkshake across to me. I appreciate that. More than you know, Taylor. But I don't really feel comfortable discussing all my issues with you if it's all the same. Like you said, we don't know each other. It was all I could do to avoid sighing in relief. I had enough issues trying to sort out my own emotional problems. I didn't need to work out a second person's hang-ups at the moment. Well, if you change your mind, you have my phone number now. Just text instead of calling, please. I don't have very many minutes. Amy nodded and took a drink of her shake. She pressed a button on the side of the booth, smirking as it lit up. Tinker tech in these things. The store essentially has anti-eavesdropping audio tech for the booths, that's why I said to come here. I whistled appreciatively as I tried to calculate just how bad the expenses involved in that were and raised an eyebrow at the other girl. Amy shrugged. A lot of their customers are couples, so they play up the privacy angle. It gives them enough business to afford the maintenance on the Tinker stuff when it starts to wear down. Okay, so before we get too far off track, am I wrong in assuming you're not affiliated with anyone yet? You're not wrong, I replied, trying the milkshake myself. Amy had good taste, chocolate and mint with malt, the best type of shake. I'm currently looking for a team. I think I'd be best with recon. While I have some heavy hitters in the swarm, most of the really nasty stuff would probably kill non-brutes and the rest would hurt bad enough that I would get labeled as a villain offhand. You don't send bullet ants or fire ants against people and expect to walk away with an independent hero tag. Amy just stared at me for several long moments. You have bullet ants in your repertoire. Fidgeting in my seat, I nodded. They're not native. I had to order them online. I only have a few, but I was able to get a queen, so breeding more is easy. They don't get to come out to play for a while until the colony is secure. Right now, the worst I can throw at someone around here would be some hornets. An airlifted black widows, but again, that's a quick way to get a villain label. I was babbling now. Damn it. This wasn't working. I couldn't do this on my own. It had been too long since I truly interacted with people. I needed help. Reaching out to my swarm, I shunted off my anxiety and my fear, leaving a far calmer and easier to breathe Taylor in place of the sweaty, blushing mess that had been there a moment ago. Sitting up straighter, I smiled and shrugged. I might be a bit more morally flexible than some people, but I'm not willing to go full villain and drop black widows or brown recluses on someone who doesn't heal. Even if you were right around the corner and willing to help out. That's just mean to everybody. Amy's eyes narrowed and she ran her gaze up and down me as I sipped at my shake. You're doing it again, aren't you? Doing what? That thing with your emotions. Like whatever you did at the bank that let you fight fairly well until it cut off and you collapsed into a sobbing heap. I blinked. She'd seen me crying. Only Emma had had that privilege in years. Great. I can push my emotions into my swarm. It blunts things. Makes it easier to handle the moment, easier to focus, easier to deal with the world. It's safer. That's not healthy. You can't hide from things like that. Amy hissed. Anger bled through my calm and I glared back at her. The only reason you weren't sobbing right next to me was because you focused on fixing me. That's not healthy either. That blonde talked to you for less than 30 seconds and now you're not even staying at your own home? How is your method of dealing with things any healthier than mine? Mine keeps me from murdering half of my school. I'm fine, thank you very much. Amy froze and her eyes went wide. I went back over what I had said a second ago and drew in a sharp breath. Fuck. I shunted most of my anger to the swarm as well and shut my eyes as I felt the tension in my shoulders loosen. Sorry. When I triggered, I'd been trapped in a locker for hours, nobody helped, not before, not during, not after. Everyone just went about their day, knowing I was suffering a few feet away. Only reason I was found was because a janitor decided he didn't like the smell. Even then, I'd have died at the hospital in a coma if not for you apparently. What? Amy squeaked. January. You healed a coma patient with toxic blood syndrome and wounds in her legs and lower abdomen. She had a fever of 103 that wouldn't go down and her body and organs were shutting down. She'd been there for a week, I remember that. They should have called me earlier. That girl almost died 3 times while I tried to heal her. Holy shit, that was you. Yeah. Amy drained half of her milkshake and clasped her hands around her arms. The kids at your school, they didn't help. Winslow doesn't stand up to Emma and her clique. Even when I came back, afterwards, the school pretended like I got locked in by accident and my classmates just ignored it. Worse, some of the students made it clear they thought I should have died in there. I found out why the teachers brushed it under the rug thanks to my powers at least, and it just made things worse. I don't go to school anymore. I'm too worried I'll go carry over them or something. Yeah, Amy mumbled. Yeah, I can understand that. Her head snapped up and she narrowed her eyes as she focused on me. Wait, what do you mean that you found out why the teachers brushed it away? That's bullshit. What happened was wrong and the people who did it should be punished. Whatever the reason, the staff can't get away with pretending like it didn't happen. I smirked and sipped at my milkshake, letting some of the anger bleed back into me from the swarm. My father never came to the hospital beyond signing the paperwork saying they could do whatever they needed to save my life, you know. What? What does that have to do with anything? When I woke up with powers and no dad by my bed, I knew our relationship was broken. He's been gone for a long time now. Oh, he's there physically, but I stopped mattering to him a few months after Mom died. I thought something like this would bring us together, but it just showed me how far apart we were instead. Amy frowned, completely unable to follow my tangent. That was fine. I had a point, and if she wanted to buy me a milkshake and lecture me on emotion control, then she was going to damn well listen to my rambling. I knew if I went back to school I was going to have to cover my own back. If my family wasn't even going to be at the hospital to pick me up after I nearly died, what help would the school board be? So I learned how to control my swarm enough to know where everyone around me was. If Emma and Sophia and Madison couldn't sneak up on me, then I'd be fine. That makes sense, I guess, Amy said hesitantly. Except the bugs I kept on Sophia found out something. She tried to break into my things again. They'd assigned me a new locker, like I was ever going to use one again. Sophia got into it without issue. Because she went through the door. She did what? Oh no. No, wait, Taylor, are you saying that the person tormenting you was a cape? Yup. Not just any cape. I let more anger bleed back into me and set some of the bugs outside to harass a pickpocket. A blonde who had just walked into the ice cream shop heard the commotion from outside, glanced around the store, and apparently decided she didn't want ice cream anymore since she left in a hurry. I ignored her and the pickpocket and focused back in on Amy. Shadow fucking stalker. Ward. The psycho who tried to kill me and corrupted my best friend into a monster is none other than a PRT-protected ward. That's, Amy choked out. Her fingers tightened on her arms until they were leaving white spots. They can't, there's oversight. They can't do that. They're the good guys. Nothing is black and white, Amy, I replied. I pulled some of my anxiety back from the swarm to relieve the pressure on the shunt and sighed as my shoulders sagged. Look, I'm sure that some of the protectorate and a lot of the wards are great people. But I can never trust them or join them. They let in people like Sophia Hess. I can't be on the same team as them. They're the good guys, they have to be the good guys, Amy mumbled. I frowned and reached over to shake her shoulder. Amy? You okay? What? What? Sorry. She jerked as I touched her and took a rattling breath, shaking her head. Sorry, I'm dealing with a lot. That didn't help at all, but it puts things into perspective a bit more. Sorry. Stop apologizing. I'm the one who's sending you catatonic now, I replied. Are you sure you don't want to talk about it? I just babbled half my life story after all. Maybe later. After I know what I'm going to do about it. Not right now. I still need to think. We should talk about something else. You said you won't join the wards, right? I understand that. How about New Wave? Is that an option for you? We can support you, keep you safe out there. I shook my head hard enough to whip my hair across my face and pushed almost everything back to the swarm through my shunt. No. No, I can't. I can't. Amy leaned forward and reached out to hold my hands. Her eyes widened and she gasped. Jesus, your adrenaline glands are spiking like crazy and your heart is beating a mile a minute. Taylor, calm down, it's okay, you don't have to join New Wave, I was just asking. It's okay. This is through punting off my emotions, I told her through gritted teeth. That's why I collapsed in the bank. I realized that my identity might be getting out. I can't let it get out. It can't get back to my father. Why? What's oh right, that was why we met up originally, wasn't it, parents? He's a villain. I slowly managed to get myself back under control and nodded in reply. My schoolmates weren't the only people I started tagging and following with my bugs. Your dad. He's not a good person. Not anymore. He was at one point. I remember when he wanted to fix the city. He and my mom were crusaders. They were going to make everything better and help heal the world. My mom even ran with Lustrum before she went crazy and started trying to kill all men everywhere or something. I'm not sure that counts as healing, but it would be a crusader, Amy replied, trying for a soft chuckle and failing. I did smile at her attempt though, so it did hit its mark the first guess. I've overheard him planning things with his people. He's planning to take over the city now. He's subtle about it though, and he's playing the long game. I think he still plans to make things better, but I don't even know for sure. He was so messed up after Mom died that he could just be trying to destroy everything too in revenge. He's hurt people. The only reason I even stay at home is because if I didn't, he'd know I knew something. I can't let him find out I'm a cape. Do you think he'd recruit you? Amy asked. Surely he wouldn't hurt his own daughter. Even if he is a villain. Some villains care for their kids. I let out a bark of a laugh and laid my head on the table. He'd care if I had powers. Without them? I wasn't even worth a damn pickup from the hospital after nearly dying. I want to make sure that people are safe and that nobody has to suffer like I did. I can't do that if my father gets a hold of me. He'll either force me into working with him or he'll fight me. I can't hurt him. He's a villain, but he's still my father. I felt Amy's hand in my hair as I let go of some of the shunts. My fear and my worry flowed back into me, and it was all I could do not to cry as Amy massaged my head. I know. I understand. We remained like that for God only knows how long before she said again, softly enough that I only heard her through the bug I had on her shoulder, my father gave me up to Carol and Aunt Sarah. He stopped fighting them to save my life. What? I asked, lifting my head and looking at her through a shimmery gaze. He ran a gang. New Wave stopped him back when they were called the Brockton Bay Brigade. Aunt Sarah told me that they tried to arrest him, and during the fight, I was hiding in a closet. I almost got hurt really bad until he blocked their attack and surrendered to stop the fight. His only request before they took him to the birdcage was to make sure that I didn't wind up in the system, because then someone else would use me for revenge or as a second-generation cape or something. I hung my head again and hugged myself. My father becomes a supervillain and forgets about his daughter. Your father becomes a supervillain and only cares about his daughter. Fun times. Our world is fucked up. You can say that again. I drew strength from my swarm and pulled myself back up to a sitting position. So why did you leave home? It's complicated. I'd rather not talk about it. Fair enough, I said, nodding. I'd offer my home if you need it, but you know. Supervillain home and all. Amy smiled at that and we both had a small laugh. Thanks, but I'm okay at Aunt Sarah's for now. Anyway, we really need to find you a team. Maybe. I've been considering going to talk with Perian, but she doesn't really do cape stuff. She just works with her shop mostly, from what Fo says. Amy nodded. Pretty much. She defends her turf if the gangs go there, but that's about it. I mean, there's technically Uber and Leet. The PRT classes them as villains, but they're more of just entertaining jerks mostly. They sometimes rob the people they force onto their shows, but most of what they make is through their YouTube broadcasts of their stunts. If you're willing to go a bit edgier, that might be an option. Yeah, I said, grimacing. I've been trying to avoid that one. While the video game thing could be fun, I don't think I'd clash well with their personality. Plus they freak people out with their antics at first, and that would annoy me real fast if they do it in the wrong place. We could try and contact Circus. She's unaffiliated. That's the jester with Hammerspace, right? The person that no one is really sure if they are a girl or a guy. Amy nodded. It's an option. But I think she's hard to get a hold of, and I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with her in general. Clowns are just weird. Well, how about Fault Line's crew? I sighed. Yeah, they're pretty much my best bet, but even then I'm hesitant. They accept contracts with the merchants and the E88. I'm not willing to do that. Then you have a problem, unless you're willing to leave town and go somewhere else. I know, I muttered. Been thinking of forming my own team, but I need more people. Amy looked at me and frowned. Then she pulled out her phone, tapped away for a minute and her frown deepened. Looking back and forth between the phone and me several times, she finally grinned and snapped her fingers. Stopgap solution while you find new people? Split yourself off. What? I asked deadpan, blinking at her. She held up the phone, a link to the thread I had been reading just that morning front and center along with a photo of me with my swarm covering me. Completely covering me, nothing visible but the bugs. Don't go out as Taylor or whatever you're calling yourself. Was going with Queen at the moment, I muttered. Couldn't think of anything better and it's appropriate since I have control of the swarm. Okay, don't go out as Queen. Go out as this. Foe is convinced that you are a case 53 made of bugs. Sell that. Be two different capes. One that controls bugs, Queen. And one that is bugs, Hive. You, yourself never even need to get close to a target if you go out as Hive, especially if your range is good enough. Then when you find a team, you can start going out as Queen too and have the extra member join up. My mouth dropped open as I stared between Amy and her phone. My swarm buzzed in the back of my mind. I had enough of my critters now. As long as I was careful, that could work. Yes, yes it could. I looked up at her and smiled. Holding out my hand, my grin widened as Amy shook it. I think this could be the beginning of a wonderful partnership, Amy. Amy snorted and rolled her eyes. Whatever you say, Taylor. Now finish your milkshake. I need to give you tips on how to deal with the Protectorate when they come to speak with Hive. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.